Reduce costs. So this goes back to what we just talked about, so we can probably speed through it. But as you can see in this beautiful image here, we have dollar bills growing out of the ground. And so what that means is that, we actually, interesting enough, we ran an article a while back. We were working with a client who was running a Java Spring API on Elastic Beanstalk. So that's a fully managed AWS service that allows you to run that Java Spring API, without worrying about the underlying server, right? Mm-hmm. So it's on the fringe of being serverless, right? Yeah. But you're still having to do like some manual stuff in between that. So the cool thing about it is that we ended up finding a solution where we could take that Elastic Beanstalk Java Spring API, turn it into a Lambda function with API gateway, and we saved them almost 100%. Wow. So, when we were talking about 80% savings, 70% savings, we can say like we saved them 100%, because what we did is we basically took their simple Java Spring API that required this super powerful server, and then we used a Docker container in between it to then translate it into Lambda functions. And the result of it was nowhere near 1 million invocations per month. And so it went from something like spending $1,200 per month to nothing.
Yeah.
And I mean, and then we're talking like, if it is something, we're talking like the $5 to $10 range. Like it's not, it's nickel and dimes.
Yeah, no, I was reading a couple weeks ago, there was just searching the serverless hashtag, I think, or the cloud computing hashtag on LinkedIn, and I found like this UK consulting company, serverless consulting company. They're on a podcast, and they're talking about how they were contracted by, I think, like a big organization, like not like the BBC, but like something where it's like this is big and established, and it's all British, so it's like important. And hopefully we have some people from the UK watching.
Yeah, true.
But they were contracted to like do some marketing campaign for them. They're like, usually when we do this on our website, we spend like $10,000 campaign, because everything has to be live and ready for people to call in and sort of talk to us and give us money and do that. And so instead of doing the traditional server-based way, they went serverless. And instead of spending 10 grand, they paid 28 cents. Like, it was just ridiculous. Like, that's just insane that we live in a world where you can go from normally spend $10,000, but now I can spend 28 cents. So look at that.
Yeah, no, that's
like a normal story that happens.
That is a normal story, and that's something that we've seen too. Is like when companies have hired us and they've already been established, there's been like a weird thing that pops up where like within a month or two, we pay back the cost of actually paying us continually, right?
Yeah.
So like we started at a company and they were losing like $50,000 per month in productivity loss. We came in, we set up a serverless CI/CD pipeline to roll out their applications. We made all this supporting automation in between it. And because of that, they stopped rolling out breaks to production. They were now running more efficiently. They were able to do a lot more without the impact on the business, because we broke their, not to be like very harsh, but it was poorly architected, where the front end website and the database and the compute, like the business logic and the APIs, were all running on one server. And so if the front end, if you had to make changes to the back end API, it would break the front end.
No.
And so that break would end up causing a lot of issues, because the app was being actively used by people at the company. And so if it broke, people at the company couldn't do their job. And so that loss of ability to do the job counted up to about $50,000 in productivity loss. And so when we came in and architected the automation, broke apart the application with like, S3 static hosting, Elastic Beanstalk, and we had a CI/CD pipeline in between that connected back to their source control, to GitHub and to Bitbucket. We were using GitHub, but just to mention Bitbucket. And then we had it connected to the CI/CD pipeline with our bash script automation that then pushed out these updates to both S3 for the front end and Elastic Beanstalk. And when it did both of those, we had no downtime. And so there was this layer of like, once this was implemented, which took about a month and a half or 2 months, we basically stopped this leak of money, and that $50,000 then became profit. And then our bill for working with them was covered like 2 or 3 times over, because they no longer had this, this leak in the ship. So that was another example of like really, really simple stuff that people can do that you just have to, you need somebody on the outside that can see the gaps.